Hi, I'm Midge Shoemaker, and today is day 96 of my doing 100 days of YouTube videos and celebrating myself. So, yay for day 96! 4 days to go. Four more videos to go, I should say. I'm still kind of on ending day 99, starting day 100. So, I'm up to 4 days behind on my videos. But that is why today is procrastination, which is probably part of why I am behind on my videos right now, which is hilarious to me because I did them every single day for a whole year, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I'm not done, so I'm having to play catch up because life and other things have gotten in the way, and then I'm like, cool, I'm giving myself permission to skip a day. Cool, I'm procrastinating, which means I get to procrastinate making my videos. That's the downside of what I choose to celebrate for the day. I think about that for the day, and then I end up acting that out during the day. I respond to things that way. It becomes a more prominent, it comes more prominently to my brain, I guess, because I'm thinking about it. So then it becomes something that I'm focused on, and whatever I'm focused on seems to be what I'm doing or how I choose to respond to the world. So when I celebrate things that I don't necessarily like about myself or not the best traits or whatever they are, I I end up doing that. So I procrastinated because I celebrated procrastination. It's not the only reason or only day that I skipped, obviously, but one of the reasons why I do that. I have this magnet on my fridge that says I do everything at the same time each day, like last minute or something like that. I'm like, I just read it and I can't remember what it says, but something to the effect that I do everything at the same time each day. This is the last minute. I'm like, I always put everything off to the last minute or until it's just too late to do it, because that's part of my avoidance tactics. That's part of my, I don't know, denial, self-preservation. And I think I procrastinate things as well because I have some kind of perfectionism in me. So I should probably celebrate that as well, which I don't. I don't. Because if it's not perfect, I don't want to do it. And and that's just it. I have this idea that it has to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, then I can't do it, or it's not good enough. And I know that's not true, but knowing it's not true and feeling it's not true or believing it's not true are completely different things. So I'm working on that one. I am, but I have a tendency to procrastinate it because I'm I'm afraid of the outcome. I'm afraid it won't be good enough. I just don't have the stuff that I need. I just don't have the time, the energy. My excuses pile all the way up for why I procrastinate things. I honestly, sometimes I don't think I can even tell myself why I procrastinate. I think it's just a subconscious thing that I do. Kind of maybe one of those things I learned growing up. I feel bad always blaming it on what I learned growing up, but I think part of it is like my brain is trained based on what I learned, what I interpreted, how I perceived the world growing up has a huge role on how I perceive the world as an adult. And obviously that can be changed and rearranged and it's okay. But in my world growing up, we didn't do we didn't do chores regularly. My biological mom tried chore charts all the time and they just never worked because she worked and she had no means of enforcing it, and we'd all agree to do it, and then none of us would, because there just weren't any consequences, or it didn't feel like there were any negative consequences for not doing it. And if the reward wasn't good enough, I mean, we'd do it for like a week or two and then it's like, yeah, and it would trickle off just like everything else I do in my seem to do in my life. I start strong. I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then I'm like, yeah, I just kind of trickle off. So getting myself to finish projects is something very hard for me to do. And the procrastinating thing, I think, I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, a lot of it is like we didn't do the chores, so everything would pile up, it would build up, it would become this overwhelming, ginormous mess, and then we would spend the entire day cleaning the entire house and doing all the laundry and all of everything. And so it was kind of like an all or nothing sort of a thing. So it's like put it off and put it off and put it off until it's this ginormous, overwhelming pile, and then tackle it all in one day. And then you're completely exhausted and you're like, okay, but I did it and I feel totally accomplished and this is awesome and this looks amazing. And nowhere in my brain did it say, I'm going to just pick stuff up and keep it like this so it never gets that out of control again. As an adult, that has entered my brain where I need to keep this like this and not let it get so out of control. But admittedly, when I am feeling depressed or discouraged, I don't care how big the mess gets. It can get as big as it wants. It can get as messy as it wants. I just don't have the energy to deal with it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm depressed, and the bigger the mess is, the more depressed I become. And as I climb out of that depression, as I feel better about myself, then I'm like, oh, crap. Now I have to find the energy to tackle the mess. And my brain still thinks I have to tackle it all at once. And I am trying to teach it and to learn that I don't have to tackle it all at once. And it's been amazing to do the little tasks at a time, and to recognize that if I just consistently do it, just a little bit at a time, one, all the big stuff slowly eventually gets taken care of, just not overnight. And then two, so then it's not completely exhausting doing it, which doesn't make me dread doing it, which I think is part of why I hate cleaning, because cleaning in my mind is you have to clean the entire thing, you have to spend the entire day, and you're completely physically exhausted, and then it only looks nice for about 20 minutes, and then something gets dirty. Because, I mean, I had siblings that were, I didn't live by myself, obviously, and even as an adult, I'm like, okay, well, laundry always has to be done, dishes always have to be done, it's just kind of like, gotta use the bathroom, all of those things. And I was like, it's clean for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then something has to get used. It doesn't just stay pristine unless you're constantly cleaning as you're going and dirtying and then washing everything after you dirty it. And I am not one of those people. Granted, it probably wouldn't take nearly as much time if I did it like that instead of procrastinating it. But I think that's part of why I don't like cleaning, because I see it as an all or nothing thing. I see it as this ginormous mess that takes forever. And then when it's done, I'm like, yay, it feels good and it's nice. And then I'm like, oh, I don't have to do that again for like another year or another 3 or 4 months or whatever until it gets to be a mess again. And so that, I think, but the procrastination doesn't just apply to the cleaning and the mess in my house. It applies to school projects. It applies to, not that I'm in school now, but growing up, it applied to school projects. I'm like, I'm not going to do my homework until it's due, or I do it in class before I have to turn it in. Or I do it like the night before and stay up all night doing my homework. The only time I ever did a paper, I think I was in college, and I had a teacher, and they did the research, but they made you turn it in at different stages. You had to do the draft, you had to do it this in the order that they wanted the paper written. And so then you did the paper that way, and then it's you turned it in. So by the time you got to the end, you just had to fill in all the blanks. And so it wasn't this big, huge, daunting, overwhelming task, because the way the assignment was set up, it couldn't be. You couldn't leave it to the last minute. I did. I still finished my paper the night before, but it wasn't as daunting a task because of that. But I still do that with everything. I just wait until the very last minute to do it. I wish there was some way to not get myself to do that. Because I understand the concept of you just do it when you get it. Don't put off today what you can. Don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today, or whatever that saying is, does not apply in my brain. My brain is just put it off till tomorrow until you can't put it off put it off as long as possible until you can't put it off any longer, and then stress out, freak out, and then do your worst and be done with it. And yes, I said do my worst, because it can't possibly be the best when it's the last minute. It may not be as nice or turned out as well because I waited until the last minute to do it. And I always feel a little bit better. I feel more prepared when I actually take the time to do things beforehand instead of at the last minute. But honestly, even my Sunday school lessons that I have to teach every 2 weeks, I'm like, I know I got 2 whole weeks to prepare this lesson. And when do I do it? Usually Sunday morning before I have to go to church. That's when I do it. Or sometimes in the first hour sacrament meeting of church before I have to actually teach my lesson in Sunday school. So and I have no excuse for that. I really don't. I have all the time in the world, and I'm like, yeah, I have time to do it, so I'm not going to do it. Oh, I'm out of time? All right, I'm going to do it. Honestly, I don't know quite how to change my brain and make it stop doing that. It's kind of annoying. sometimes. And like I said, there have been times where I have done things slowly, like slowly starting to clean up my kitchen and my bathrooms and other parts of my house. And I'm like, I'm not tackling it all at once because I just don't have the energy to do it. And so my brain is like, if I don't have the energy to do all of it, I just can't do any of it. But I was like, no, I can do a little bit. And I have been very proud of myself for the little bit that I have done. And I look around and see the little progress I'm making. And I'm like, yes, this is working. This is awesome. But then, of course, something happens. I get sick or sore or tired or whatever. And then I stop doing my little things and it just builds right back up again. I'm like, well, that was pointless. It wasn't really pointless. It just means I didn't finish. I need to be more consistent and keep going. So it's a process. Changing my brain thoughts is a process, and overcoming procrastination is something that's difficult for me to do. It's something I always put off. If it's possible to put it off, I will. I even do it with my bills. I'm like, if I go to work, I can get, pay the bills and maybe they get paid on time. And if I work when I don't have bills due, I can actually maybe get ahead and have some extra money. And I'm like, cool, I don't have a bill due today. I'm not working today. It's like, but I could go to work and get ahead and this would be fantastic. And my brain has these awesome ideas and I'm like, it's so right. It's so true. And God's like, do it, do it, do it. And I'm like, all right, Major, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And then my body's like, that's funny. We procrastinate everything. Remember? We don't do stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, huh? Nothing's due today. We're good. We don't have to work. And then, of course, when everything's due, I'm like, man, if I'd worked last week, I wouldn't be stressing about how to pay the bills right now. So procrastination does not serve me well. I'm not really sure what purpose that serves in my life at all. I even do that with my emotional things. If I don't want to deal with emotional things, like, I avoid all of it. I put it off until it's this big, huge, giant thing, and then it's overflowing, and I can't function because it's just weighing me down. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I will deal with. And then I only deal with whatever's on the surface because that stuff I don't want to deal with. I've tried to tackle all at once, and you can't tackle all of the old built-up emotions all at once. It's just too intense. It's too crazy. But that may be why I have severe depression and anxiety and all kinds of other things that I deal with. So that's never fun for me. Anyway, so it's not good for me to procrastinate. And like I said, I don't know, other than I'm afraid that things won't be perfect and I put it off until the last minute and then I have the excuse. I'm like, oh yeah, I just ran out of time and I didn't finish it. And that's why it doesn't look as nice as I pictured in my brain that it was going to be. I'm like, yeah, I pictured in my mind it would be so much nicer. And maybe if I spent more time, it could be. But I'm also amazed at the random things that I can throw together at the last minute that actually still look nice. So that's always impressive too. Anyway, so I have learned how to put things together really quickly at the last minute, but I wish I would learn how to just do it as I go along the way and not have to try to do it all at the last minute. So anyway, that's pretty much all that I have for today and for procrastination. If you guys have any ideas as how procrastination is a positive thing and something nicer in my life than that would be awesome. But that is one of my vices that for some reason I hold on to. Just have a hard time letting go of that one. And it permeates a lot of things, which is frustrating, but there it is. Anyway, that's what I have for today. So if you like these videos, you can hit like, subscribe, share with someone else if you think they'll like it too. And I hope you have a great day full of gratitude. Find some fun ways to celebrate yourself and maybe do some writing.